Enter the fog of industrial England. Let yourself grow still. Let the breath soften, and imagine yourself drifting backward through the swirling steam and soot of time, past the modern city glow, past the hum of engines, past memory itself, until the air grows colder, the cobblestones damp beneath your boots, and you find yourself in London, not the London of postcards or holiday dreams, but the narrow, aching London of the 1840s, a place of workhouses, of laws that punish the poor, of hunger mistaken for laziness, and of silence, the kind that falls not from peace, but from exhaustion. In this quiet meditation, we will descend into a forgotten corner of history. You will not race, you will not fight, you will simply witness the rhythm of a life most were meant to forget. We begin in the early light, inside one of England's cold stone workhouses, the hidden truth about life in a Victorian workhouse, 19th century England, where poverty was criminalized and survival was a slow, grinding endurance. Breakfast is cold gruel. Again you awaken to the tolling of an iron bell. Its clang is not loud, but it is final. It slices the silence of your thin straw mattress, shaking sleep from your limbs as if you were never meant to keep it. You are already dressed. You sleep in your clothes, scratchy linen, the color of old ash. They itch in winter. They burn in summer. They mark you as one of the poor inmates of the parish. You rise in rows. No one speaks. Speech is punishable. Even coughing must be stifled. Imagine the smell, coal smoke soaked into stone. Walls, the sour scent of cabbage boiled too long, and behind it all, the faint temps of bleach and rot that never quite fades. You are led with others down a narrow corridor, its stones damp with the morning's breath. Your boots slip slightly on moss-covered floor. You pass the chapel, the laundry, the infant's ward, each locked tight with bolts and quiet rules. In the mess hall, wooden benches line long tables. Everyone eats facing forward. Everyone eats in silence. Breakfast is gruel again. A bowl of watery oats, lukewarm if you're lucky. Your fingers are too numb to hold the spoon without trembling. The tin is dented. The flavor is nothing. But this is not about taste. It is about routine, survival through repetition. After breakfast comes work, always work. For you, it is textile sorting today. You sit in a hall that echoes with the sound of thread and scissor snips. You pull apart donated cloth coarse, damp, stiff with mold. You separate buttons from seams. You sort rags by color, even though your eyes ache from soot and dim gaslight. Sometimes your fingers bleed. You do not stop. There is no cotton to bind wounds. Only the rhythm of task after task after task. Children work beside you, small fingers more nimble than yours, though thinner. Their eyes hold no questions. They were born into this. You remember a time you weren't here, a room with a roof that leaked, but it was yours, a mother's voice, laughter that didn't feel guilty. But that was before the factory shut, before the debt, before the law changed. You were deemed unemployable. You were deemed destitute. You were brought here to the house of industry, of silence, of correction. The overseers. Boots click behind you. The silence tightens. You are not alone, but loneliness coats the inside of your ribs like coal dust. Thick, unseen, inescapable. In the evening, your bones ache as you climb to the dormitory. There is no pillow, no blanket if the day's labor was deemed insufficient. The air smells faintly of urine and lye soap. As you lie back, hands stiff, eyes dry, you wonder what tomorrow will be. But then you remember, it will be exactly this. And in that knowing, in that dull certainty, a strange stillness begins to settle, like fog, like ritual. And so you sleep in the soot-covered stillness of the Victorian machine until the bell tolls again. Outside, the world remains wrapped in a slow, soot-colored dawn. The fog presses tightly against barred windows, as if even the sky has been locked in with you. A soft shuffle of feet is the only sound permitted, a rhythmic, muted procession of the forgotten. There are no greetings, no whispered prayers. The act of speaking is not just discouraged, it is punishable with silence, meals, or days in solitary confinement. And so everything becomes internal. You learn to live by the rhythm of the bell. It rings at waking, at meals, at work, at chapel, at the start and end of labor shifts. It rings, and you obey. You do not ask, you do not question, because to question implies choice. You've begun to forget your own voice. It now feels like an artifact, a relic from another timeline, when you were still someone, when someone still spoke your name. Each task is allocated by caste. You, a textile sorter. Others are chimney boys, washerwomen, needlers, bone grinders, rock breakers for the younger men, sharpening stones down to gravel for roadworks. Their arms are wrapped in burlap, not for warmth, but to keep their skin from tearing too quickly. Every labor hall smells different. The laundry wing steams with sour soap and human effort. The candle hall burns with the sharp scent of tallow and wax. The mortuary, you are not allowed near it, but you know where it is. Down past the third corridor, behind the chalk door marked only with a white cross, the bodies are not embalmed. There is no ceremony, only quiet removal in the early hours, covered by the bell of the night shift. On Wednesdays, you receive chapel. You do not attend for faith. You attend because it is warmer there. A slight gust of coal heat from a rarely lit stove, the smell of singed wool and wax-polished wood. You listen to verses that promise reward for endurance. You mouth hymns because it is expected, not because you believe, but because the songs are the closest thing to music you still remember. In summer, the heat is unbearable. Fleas, lice, and the heavy musk of unwashed skin create a fog thicker than any London smog. The water is rationed. You are told to be grateful. In winter, your breath becomes visible. It floats in front of you like a soul escaping, then vanishes. Blankets are rewards. Fire is a privilege. You learn to sleep in layers. You tuck your hands beneath your knees. You count the cracks in the ceiling beams until sleep stumbles in. You've begun to dream in gray. Memories come back as black and white stills. You can no longer recall your mother's face, only the shape of her hands as she stirred soup. There are rare moments of kindness. A crust of bread passed beneath the table, a stolen look of solidarity, the way one inmate might let another rest slightly longer in the weaving room by swapping turns unnoticed. These are the invisible rebellions, the only kind that survive. At night, you return to your bunk. The wooden planks creak beneath your weight. Another bell tolls, the last one for the day. And once more, In the stillness of breathless sleep, the workhouse disappears. For a moment, you are no one, and being no one in this world is a kind of peace. The forgotten, the fevered, and the children below. The cold is not your greatest enemy here, nor the hunger, nor even the endless hours of labor. It is the forgetting, the slow erosion of self, the way your memories begin to gray at the edges, like paper left out in the rain too long. You once had a birthday. Now you only mark time by coughs, by the number of faces that disappear from the long benches each month. They are there, and then they are not. No announcements, no goodbyes. The youngest are taken first when winter settles in, their chests too small to fight the air, their fingers blue before dawn. There is no medicine, only peppermint oil rubbed on the back, and whispered hymns while their breath rattles like cracked china. You remember one girl, Marley, 6 years old, hair the color of chimney soot, eyes wide like saucers. She'd hum to herself as she stitched a song with no tune, only rhythm. She was gone by the end of the week. You found her thread still looped in the fabric the next morning. You never learned to cry anymore. Even your tears feel rationed. The punishment cells are lined with stone. No window, no straw, a slot in the door for gruel. Some call it the forgetting box. They say if you stay in too long, you'll come out not knowing your name. Some don't come out at all. You once saw a boy placed in there for speaking out of turn, just 3 words spoken too loudly during sewing inspection. He was gone for 7 days. When he emerged, he no longer spoke at all. His eyes no longer blinked together. On stormy days, the pipes bang above your sleeping quarters. The whole building breathes like an old beast, groaning, gasping, coughing blackened steam through metal lungs. You sometimes imagine it is alive, that it knows you are inside it, and that it does not care. A part of you still pretends the world outside goes on, that beyond the iron gate a market still hums, a violin still plays near the docks, someone still eats apples in the sun. But that world was before your name was replaced by a number, before your fingerprints bled into the cloth, day after day, before you learned that dreams were for the ones who owned factories, not for those inside them. You find sleep more easily now, not because you are comfortable, but because exhaustion has become your only remaining gift. You nestle into the plank. Above you, a single candle flickers from the overseer's corridor. The walls sweat with cold, and just before your eyes close, you whisper your name, not aloud, of course, only in the safety of your skull. You whisper it because you are the only one left who remembers it, and even that memory feels like something borrowed. Fever songs and hollowed names, the fever comes quietly. It arrives like fog slipping under a locked door, creeping into your lungs, into the soft ache behind your eyes, into the rhythm of your heartbeat as it begins to pulse unevenly, a ticking clock with a loose cog. You are still at your station, your fingers moving thread through canvas. But the thread becomes a snake, then a vine, then a silver rope that ties your thoughts into knots. Your hands do not stop. They are trained not to, but in your mind, the ceiling cracks open. You see a sky that doesn't belong here. Lavender clouds, a bell tower floating upside down, a woman with no face singing a hymn you almost remember. Come the weary, heavy-laden, the chapel. Yes, that was the hymn. You remember now a Sunday, 3 winters ago, you had sat at the back bench, too tired to stand. The hymn rose like warm breath. Someone behind you, an older boy, had whispered the words in your ear. His voice rasped raw from the flue. Lean on me, I will give you rest. You almost believed him. Now, the fever coils tighter. You see your own body from above. Your head bowed over your work, eyes glassy, lips twitching to invisible words. The overseer passes, but does not notice. You are working. That is all that matters. In this fever light, you begin to hear the names again, the names of the ones who vanished, the ones who slipped away quietly. Their names echo down the corridor of your skull like footsteps. Marley, Tom, Sister Grace, Old Webb, the cook, who died mid-stir, and then your own name. Not the number they gave you, not the nickname they whisper behind backs, but your real name. The one your mother called you when she tied your scarf just a little too tightly, the day she brought you here, the day her eyes didn't meet yours. You whisper it now, in your mind, over and over, as the fever lifts you from your body like smoke from a chimney stack. You float above the benches, above the coal buckets, above the ashes of unspoken prayers. And when the bell tolls again, your body jerks awake. You are still here, still working, but the name lingers, like breath on cold glass. And for one small, sacred moment, you remember that you were once loved, even here, even now, even if only by yourself. Transitional breath descent into Lambeth's forgotten wings. And so the day ends, not with sleep, but with stillness, a kind of numb quiet that coats the bones. The candlelight in the overseer's corridor finally dies. The great breath of the workhouse goes shallow for the night. Even the walls seem to settle into silence. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, you hear scratching, not rats, but memory. The kind of memory that does not ask permission to return. They say the south wing of the Lambeth house was once sealed, bricked up, forgotten on purpose. The doors behind the boiler room that no one speaks of now. And yet, sometimes at dusk, a girl swears she hears humming, an old woman's voice, crooked but melodic, singing something strange in Latin or tongues older than the chapel. They call her the Madwoman, a myth, they say, a ghost, a warning. But once she was real. Once she had a name too. Let us go now, gently, into her story, not to solve it, only to listen, only to remember. The Madwoman of Lambeth, a gentle unfolding. You don't hear her name spoken in daylight, not in the sewing rooms, not in the laundry halls, not even in the whispering crackle of the hearth embers, where workers gather their cold hands. But at night, when the wind seeps through the crooked window panes, when the iron pipes groan and moan in their sleep, the girls speak of her, the Madwoman. They say she once stood at the northern gate, barefoot, wearing only her shift, a ledger clutched to her chest. She demanded entrance, not as a pauper, but as a witness. Her name was Elise Trammell. Records what few remain call her deluded, unfit, troubled in the womb of the mind. But some say she had been a teacher once, others the daughter of a tradesman fallen into ruin. Others still whisper that she had been one of the upper class, a lady who fell from grace for asking too many questions. What remains consistent in all versions is that she resisted. She refused to follow. rules that punished silence and obedience. She wrote pages upon pages, not prayers, but testimonies, not journals, but evidence. Her words were inked onto scraps of newspaper, smuggled into chimney flues, scribbled on walls behind cupboards in the infirmary. Some were found, burned, erased. Others still remain beneath floorboards, behind false bricks in the western wing. Testimonies of cruelty, of neglect, of something else, something she only ever referred to as the hollow clockwork. She said the workhouse wasn't simply a system, it was a machine, a mechanical dream designed to grind souls into usable hours. She claimed it 8 times, then children's names, when forgotten, became fuel for it. That the ticking bell above the central tower wasn't powered by gears, but by the dreams of the broken. You might dismiss this, if not for the fact that one morning Elise vanished, simply gone. No illness, no death record, no transfer to the asylum, just disappeared. The girls who knew her say she walked into the chapel during evening hymn, stared up at the stained glass window of St. Mary Magdalene, and said softly, "There's more than one way to leave a place." Then she was never seen again. But sometimes when you walk the corridor near the old laundry ovens, where her cell once stood, your candle flickers, and if you press your ear to the wall very gently, you can hear scratching, a rhythm, a pattern, a soft thrum like a pulse, not mad, not forgotten, only hidden. Fragments from the hollow clockwork. The first fragment is scrawled in pencil on the back of a ration card, its edges burnt as if someone had tried to destroy it. Recovered decades later from behind the chimney flue in Ward 5, it reads, "Time does not pass in here. It loops, it coughs, it forgets itself. The floorboards whisper the names of girls who no longer exist. The air forgets your face before the mirror can remember it." They say Elise would sometimes pause mid-washing, mid-mending, mid-breath, and scribble into the hems of donated coats or the inside flaps of tin lunch pails. Some of her writings contained codes, patterns of tick marks and hollow circles, which one girl, years later, came to believe were formulas, ciphers for frequencies. One fragment buried inside a coal bucket. They've tuned the walls. Can you not hear it? Each wing vibrates on a slightly different chord. A child cries in C minor. A whip strikes in G sharp. We are the dissonance, keeping their reality in tune. Girls whispered that Elise had once found a hidden crawl space, not large enough for a body, but just enough for memory. Inside, etched into plaster, softened by age and mildew, was what some called the spiral prayer. A single glyph spiraling inward in increasingly tiny, cramped lines, until it formed a hollow circle at its core. No words, only breath. Only the sound of your own heartbeat when you stared into it too long. The girls who did dared not sleep that night. Their dreams were filled with gears, with children walking backwards through corridors that never ended. Whispered conversations. She wasn't mad. A girl once said beneath her breath while kneading laundry soap, "She just remembered too much." "She told me the bell in the tower isn't for time," another murmured. "It's for forgetting." They made her vanish because she saw what the place was doing to our names. A 12-year-old who never learned to write claimed she could still hear Elise singing, not with her ears, but in her bones. The hollow clockwork, a metaphysical reflection, Elise's final writing, as later pieced together by a sympathetic teacher who fled the system, was never found intact. but the fragments all shared a single theme, that the Victorian workhouse wasn't just a building of stone and soot. It was a metaphysical engine, a vibrational siphon. Each hour worked, each name forgotten, fed something beneath the city, something ancient, a hunger for structured pain, for predictable despair. Elise called it the hollow clockwork, and she believed it connected not just one workhouse, but all of them across England, across time. Each bell toll, a pulse, each prayer said by rote, a gear turning. She believed if enough people remembered the truth at the same time, if enough of them said their real names aloud, the gears would crack, the cycle would break. She didn't try to escape, she tried to awaken, and maybe, just maybe, she did. Because sometimes, when you hear the bell now, it skips a beat, a brief silence between tolls, as if it's listening for her still. The after-presence of Elise, a meditation beyond the walls. She was not buried, not truly. There is no grave for Elise Trammell, no plot, no stone, no death certificate inked by trembling hands, only absence. And yet her presence lingers, like dust that glows only when the candle flickers just so. Some say she became part of the workhouse itself, not in body, but in frequency, in the space between chime and echo, in the echo beneath breath, in the dream just before waking. It is whispered in corners, very softly, where no overseer listens, that Elise didn't die. She folded inward, through her own memory, through the spiral glyph she etched behind the chimney wall. A portal, perhaps, not in space, but in time memory. She may not be a ghost, not quite, but something more subtle, more aware. A kind of metaphysical librarian, cataloging every forgotten name, every punished whisper, every bruise erased by soot and sanctioned obedience. A keeper of the hollow. There are moments when the girls awaken at night, not from dreams, but from a feeling, a breath at the nape, a warmth in the cold, a sense that someone remembers them. Not God, not the overseer, but her, that somewhere, beyond the ticking bell, beyond the soot and steam, there is still a page left open, with their names scrawled gently by a steady, defiant hand. And now, with lantern dimmed and breath steady, we descend into the underground, where candle shadows stretch and whisper over old maps, and the city's bones remember more than its surface will ever tell. Sewer maps and candle shadows beneath the skin of Victorian London. Breathe slowly. Now, imagine yourself descending, not in haste, not in fear, but in quiet, careful wonder, as though you are about to enter the veins of a sleeping giant, beneath the cobbled streets of 19th century London, beneath the smoke and grime and polished boots of city gentlemen. There stretched a hidden world, not just of brick and bone, but of silence and memory. You are following the path of the forgotten. The tunnel walls narrow, candlelight flickers. The smell is layered, old soap, rot, something metallic, something almost like rain on rusted chains. In your hands is a fragile scroll, not a scroll of scripture, but of sewer maps, drawn by hand, coded with arcane symbols. They were made by men and boys who worked the underways, the cleaners, the scavengers, the pipe divers. Most could not read or write their names, but they memorized entire labyrinths by feel, by scent, by rhythm. They knew where the sweet walls were, where the brick was newer and would echo differently under steam. They knew where old plague bones lay, untouched, because no one dared disturb them. They knew which vents hissed with strange gases, and which rooms sealed for decades still hummed. These maps were passed in secret, copied onto scraps of oilcloth, sometimes etched into tin buttons, sometimes tattooed into skin, because these tunnels were not just functional, they were sacred. The ritual of descent. When a new boy joined the tunnel crews, he wasn't taught with words. He was taken below, blindfolded, and led in silence through the maze. The rite was simple. Follow the scent of paraffin and the sound of dripping iron. If he returned above, with his match still lit, he was ready. If not, he returned no further. They believed light was alive down here. That flame itself learned to whisper, and there were whispers, not of voices, but of movements in walls that never shifted, of patterns of cold, of tunnels that did not appear on any map, but which called to certain people in dreams. Hidden sanctums. There were chambers carved into the junctions where 3 tunnels met, where no human hand should have carved anything at all. Inside, candle soot in spirals, moss that glowed faintly blue, scraps of chalk arranged like runes, and in one case, a small chair made of iron nails fused together without heat. No one ever sat in it. No one ever admitted to finding it. But the chair was always warm. Graves below graves, it was whispered that beneath the sewer tunnels lay another layer, older than the city itself. Roman crypts, druid holes, and deeper still, what some called the hollow teeth. Rooms with no entrances, only listening vents. Rooms lined with bone. Some of the tunnelers believed the workhouses dumped bodies below. Some believed the bodies were still alive in a kind of stopped time, preserved by vibration, suspended between suffering and forgetting. Modern rediscoveries in the 21st century. A group of amateur historians discovered a sealed hatch beneath what had been the Bethnal Green Workhouse. Inside, a tunnel never marked on official plans. Within it, a candle still intact, unburnt but warm. Beside it, a map drawn on aged paper. It did not lead anywhere on Earth as we know it. Instead, it spiraled inward like a glyph. At its center, a name, Elise. And now, with the candle low and your thoughts gentle, we ascend once more, not to the soot-covered dormitories, but to the parlors, the gaslit ballrooms, the other side of the world, where privilege wore silk and secrets tasted like sugar. The upstairs world of tea and scandal, a soft glimpse into Victorian privilege. And now we exhale gently, rising slowly from the cold tunnels and dusty corridors of the workhouse. You emerge into another world entirely. Still London, still 19th century. But now everything smells of jasmine, water, and coal-heated velvet. Here your shoes make no sound against carpet. Your breath does not mist in front of you. The air is warm, honeyed, perfumed with polish and rosewood. You are no longer a number in a workhouse ledger, but a guest in a drawing room upstairs. In this realm of tea and scandal, time flows differently. It does not grind, it glides. Tea at 4. Every day, imagine yourself seated in a sunlit parlor. The wallpaper is patterned with peacocks and chrysanthemums, its edges browned slightly by the flicker of gaslight. A maid enters, careful not to make eye contact. You are offered Earl Grey in fine china, biscuits with currant jam, and conversation that never fully means what it says. Did you hear Lady Winthrop's cousin fell ill on the continent? Which really means she vanished under suspicious circumstances. She's quite fond of Italian sculpture, which might mean she's taken a lover or a debt. In this world, silence is its own kind of currency. One never says too much, but always says something. The ballrooms of gaslight. At night, the world becomes golden. Gilded chandeliers hum gently with heat, their flames reflecting off crystal and lacquered mahogany. You are wearing gloves that itch ever so slightly, a corset or cravat that presses into breath just enough to remind you you are being watched. Music swells from a string quartet, not fast, not joyous, but practiced. Everything is practiced. Here, a dance is not just movement, it is negotiation. Who stands where? Who touches whom? Who disappears into the curtained hall for 5 minutes and returns with a slightly flushed face and a missing glove? Even the steps, 1, 2, 3, turn, are like spoken spells, encoded, rehearsed. The diaries no one reads. Each lady keeps a journal. Each gentleman keeps a letter drawer. They record what is said, what is meant, and what must never be said aloud. Sometimes these diaries contain recipes, sometimes codes, sometimes the names of workhouse children long forgotten by the city, but remembered privately by someone who could never admit to caring. Because here, upstairs, empathy is dangerous. It is not fashionable to feel, only to appear to. The mirror and the stairwell sometimes late. At night, a woman will stand before her mirror in one of these stately homes, her corset unbound, her hair half pinned, and she will stare not at her face, but at something behind it. She remembers the child she used to be, the sounds she once heard beneath the floorboards, the girl in the attic across the alley who was taken away when no one was looking. She wonders if the girl was Elise. She wonders if she was Elise, but only for a moment, because morning comes fast, and reputations must be laundered like linen. The gentle contrast, and so the segment ends, not in bitterness, but in contrast. 2 worlds, 2 Londons, one lit by gaslight, the other by ash, each pretending not to see the other, each holding quietly its own sacred silence. And now, with all 4 layers of history folded gently around your awareness, you are invited to soften into stillness. Let the stories rest in you. Like warm stones, you've wandered through soot, scandal, sorrow, and silk. Now, it is time to return to breath. And now, as the last embers of gaslight dim across the velvet halls of memory, you gently float back through the layers of soot and silence, through the long breath of centuries, into the softness of your present body. You have walked the stone corridors of the forgotten. You have overheard the hush of hidden things. You have tasted gruel and scandal, and stood at the mirror between 2 worlds. Let it all fall away now. There is no bell to wake you, no ledger to sign, no glove to slip on, only the gentle hush of breath, the warm stillness of your space, and the quiet knowledge that even in the darkest corners of time, the soul remembers. Let the story dissolve into silence now, as you rest beneath the folds of soft time. You are safe, you are home, and the past has been folded away like linen.